We're talking some MMA. Fight Night 26 on Fox Sports 1 happened last night. And here to break it down is the host of Ringside Report Radio Wednesdays and Fridays here on TSN 690. You can also check out ringsidereport.net. He'll actually be hosting Wrestling Uncensored right after Red Sox Yankees tonight here live as well. You can follow him on twitter.com/Dave Simon MMA. See, now I mentioned your Twitter handle. It is Dave Simon. What's up?
Yes. Chael Sonnen, very impressive victory last night.
You and I were just talking about this off air. So, for those that don't know who he is or a whole lot about him, and in the lead up to last night's fight with Rua,
yes,
talk to listeners about why he's so good for the sport.
Chael is a guy who talks a lot, and he definitely knows how to sell the sport, and he's very well spoken. He knows how to sell his fight. He's a promoter. He's very good at promoting his fights, and sometimes
feels like he'll be a VP with them when he retires.
Yeah, I think he'll definitely have a job with the UFC or on Fox as the Fox commentary team. They love him doing the broadcast there. I think he'll definitely have a job with the Fox network if he wants it. He's an entertaining guy. He's well spoken, and he's a very good fighter. Sometimes people have accused him into, talking his way into fights he didn't necessarily belong in, like his fight with John Jones for the light heavyweight title. That was his last bout before last night where he lost in the first round. And, of course, that was coming off a loss to Anderson Silva. So he lost to the middleweight champion, then moved up to the light heavyweight and got a title shot there. So people kind of say, well, is Chael good for the sport? He talks his way into things. But at the same time, he's...
you got to promote it.
Yeah, he's a promoter. He's a compelling guy. And he gets people watching, and he got people watching last night. He's very good at promoting the new Fox Sports 1 channel that they're really into pushing right now. So, yeah, Chael is good, and he was able to get a very quick submission victory over Mauricio Shogun Rua.
Were you surprised at how quick it was?
Yeah. I was surprised at how fast it was. I was surprised that Chael was able to submit Shogun. Shogun's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and Chael Sonnen has been fighting since 1997, and he's only got 4 submissions to his record. He really isn't a guy that will submit you a lot, but he locked onto that guillotine choke, jumped guard, and finished it. It was a perfect guillotine and was able to submit the very, very tough Shogun. This is a Shogun who's only been submitted twice before in his career, and he's been fighting since 2002.
Wow.
So 29 pro fights for Shogun, only 3 now submission losses.
You and I were just talking as well prior to the fight, the pre-fight press conference, Dana White smirking while Sonnen was doing his thing and talking about how big MMA is now and how this is going to be a big fight and all that kind of stuff. So the fact that we know that Dana White loves him, what is next for this kind of character?
Well, Chael called out Wanderlei Silva after the fight. He's been calling out Wanderlei Silva since before this fight was even scheduled.
Yeah.
He wants to fight Wanderlei. He wanted to fight Wanderlei on this card, but Wanderlei said he wasn't ready for August. He wanted to fight later on in the year. And Chael laid it out, quite honestly, at the post-fight press conference, because people are wondering, why is Chael going up to 205 pounds to fight at light heavyweight, loses to John Jones, fights this fight at light heavyweight against Shogun, and before this fight, he was already talking about moving down to middleweight. So people are saying, well, why are you already saying you want to go down to middleweight? And he said simply because Wanderlei Silva has called me out. He said he wants to fight me, and he said he's dropping to middleweight. So I'm going down to 185 to meet Wanderlei Silva because he says in the media he wants to fight me, but he's never actually accepted a bout in the UFC against me. So Chael is publicly calling Wanderlei out, making it known that he is not scared to fight him, that he wants to fight him, and Wanderlei Silva, really the ball is in his court right now, whether or not to accept the fight with Chael. You kind of think he has to, but I don't really want to see that fight. I don't know if it...
Why?
I don't think it makes a lot of sense. I think that would be a fight that is maybe a little too winnable for Chael. I think Chael would come in as a heavy favorite.
Where do you want him to go? Who do you want
I want
him
to fight Vitor Belfort. Vitor Belfort right now is waiting in the wings to be the number 1 contender for the middleweight title is Chris Weidman and Anderson Silva. They'll do battle in December, and Vitor is beating everybody but those 2 guys. Chael was beating everybody at middleweight before he decided to go up to 205, and Vitor has presented himself as that new guy at middleweight. So I think that Vitor, Chael, either at 185 or 205 pounds, either division, I think that makes the most sense for Chael Sonnen right now.
January, February, something like that?
Yeah, or maybe even December. Maybe they can stick it on that December 28th card, UFC 168 in Vegas, where Anderson Silva and Chris Weidman are fighting, which, again, about Chael Sonnen because he's had those 2 legendary bouts with Anderson Silva. That's when he really rose to prominence. And there's a possibility right now, as much as some people don't want to hear it, that Chael Sonnen, with a win in his next fight, and if it schedules right, if he beats Vitor Belfort and Anderson Silva beats Chris Weidman, we could be seeing the third fight between those two in 2014.
Game Points here on TSN 690. We're chatting with Dave Simon of Ringside Report Radio. We're talking MMA and, of course, the Fight Night 26 on Fox Sports 1, which debuted last night, the UFC card. Dave, what else was on the card last night of note?
Well, we had Travis Brown coming in as a plus 190 underdog against Alistair Overeem, getting a first-round knockout. That fight was just unbelievable.
And you talked about this going in, that you thought Brown had a shot.
Yeah, I was calling it a few weeks in.
Do you remember that, Mocon?
Oh, was I here for this episode? I don't think I was.
Probably, but you weren't paying attention. That's okay. Go back to watching wrestling highlights. Sorry, Dave.
Yeah, I'd been calling Travis Brown to pull off the upset on Overeem. I just didn't think that his chin was going to be where it needed to be, and it wasn't, although it looked really scary there for a while for Travis Brown. Took some nasty knees. Overeem has some of the most devastating, powerful knee strikes you will ever see in MMA, and he just destroyed Travis Brown with those knees early in the fight and maybe tired himself out in the process. He looked like he was very, very close to knocking Travis Brown out with those vicious knees, but Brown was able to keep moving, stay defensive, and survive. And really, after that survival, he kept throwing that kind of front kick right to the face. He threw it a few times. It didn't quite land. Landed one, put Overeem down, finished it with a hammer fist, and knocked out Alistair Overeem 4 minutes, 8 seconds into the fight. Very impressive stuff.
Another short fight, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of short finishes here on this card. It was very exciting. A lot of exciting
Fox
stuff.
1 debuts, and the whole thing's over in like a half hour. Okay, up next, more commercials. I mean, how did that work exactly? A lot of delays between fights?
Yeah, that's what you do. I mean, what they do, they schedule it for about 2 fights an hour. So when one fight lasts 4 minutes, they're going to, pad it and start talking about the next fight and show highlights. And
show the lead-up promo video and et cetera. All right, so who was in the commentary booth with Joe? Was it Joe Rogan, I guess?
Yes, it was Joe Rogan, and I think John Anik was doing the commentary there, the play-by-play.
All right, were they in vintage performance? Was it good on a good entertaining?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, it really wasn't the commentary that stole the show; it was the fights. I mean, they gave 2 knockout of the night bonuses, 2 submission of the night bonus, and 1 fight of the night bonus. I mean, there were some really impressive finishes. You had a great fight. Uriah Faber was in action. He beat Yuri Alcantara in a really tough fight there. He won by decision, but just lots of finishes. Michael McDonald, a very impressive finish. This guy walked away with $100,000 extra added to his purse as he got a submission of the night, a bonus, and also a knockout of the night, or a fight of the night bonus. You can't have a submission and a knockout.
You can't do
that. Doesn't work. But he submitted Michael McDonald Brad Pickett, rather. Michael McDonald submitted him with a really nice triangle choke in the second round to take a $50,000 submission of the night bonus, and then you add that with a $50,000 fight of the night bonus. It was a pretty good night for Michael McDonald. Add that to his purse and his win bonus. He came out quite a bit richer after beating Brad Pickett last night, and really impressive stuff. Chael got a submission of the night bonus as well. Travis Brown walked away with a knockout of the night bonus. Matt Brown, another Brown. 3 Browns. 3 guys named Brown on this card. Matt, Mike, and Travis. And Matt Brown walked away with a real quick knockout of Mike Pyle. 6 wins in a row now at welterweight for Matt Brown. Gets a knockout of the night bonus and called out George St. Pierre after his fight.
It's almost comical, right, when someone calls him out?
Well, I mean, he's a welterweight.
Yeah.
And he's won 6 in a row.
Yeah, I guess
it's hard to do. You got to do it, right? I mean, that's the thing. You got to take the shot. If you don't throw your name out there as being in title contention, sometimes no one else will. So if you fly under the radar for too long and you keep winning fights but nobody's talking about you, sometimes you got to talk about yourself. And I think that's what Matt Brown did. I don't think he'll get a title shot. I'd like to see him fight Rory McDonald or the winner of Carlos Condit, Martin Kampmann. Those two are going to be fighting in the next UFC event, August 28th. I think there are options out there for Matt Brown. Guys in the top 10, but not George St. Pierre yet. He's got his plate full anyways. He fights Johnny Hendricks in November.
All right, so moving forward, Dave, what's the next card to look forward to for the UFC?
August 28th, like I just said, UFC Fight Night 27 now on Fox Sports 1. It'll be Carlos Condit, Martin Kampmann. It'll be a Wednesday night show, so a week from this Wednesday, another UFC card.
I had to ask when, even though you mentioned that one, because with the UFC, sometimes you have week after week after week. You got Fuel TV, you got Fox Sports 1, you got, what's the third one? FX, is it? That they've had a regular Fox.
Fuel, Fox, they're all over the place.
Yeah, so I had to ask. All right, so August 28th is it's the next big one.
August 28th is the next big one, and then a few days later, I think it's like 3 days later, on the 31st of August, it'll be UFC 164 on pay-per-view, Benson Henderson and then Anthony Pettis. And then a few days after that, on September the 4th, it'll be another Fight Night 28.
You know how you know that the UFC is a big draw and doing well and growing as a sport? When you can have free fights on television regularly, not just one every 6 months, regularly, and still be able to have pay-per-views that people will spend the money on regularly. I mean, that to me is the test and you know, proof in the pudding right there, right? I mean, if you only had pay-per-views, that's one thing. But they're giving it away regularly, and people still can't get enough, and they still need to go to the pay-per-views. And it's not like the pay-per-views are that much better in terms of the cards that they're showing on Fox Sports 1 or any of the other channels. Sure, you might have an Anderson Silva or a GSP on pay-per-view, but you're still getting, like you mentioned last night, a quality matchup, a quality fight for free. So it just boggles my mind that they can give it away for free and still get the money that they want on pay-per-view.
Well, it's not necessarily free, right? Fox is paying for the broadcast, right? So they are making some money.
No, I mean to the fans.
Yes.
The fans get it for free.
100%. I agree with you. And it just shows how big the UFC is getting, how big the sport of MMA is getting. People that thought that maybe it wouldn't last or it would be a flash in the pan.
Or it's cyclical or something like that.
That's not happening. It's growing. It hasn't hit its peak. People have asked me in the past, are they doing too many shows?
Yeah.
Has it hit its peak?
Yeah, we've discussed that as well, sure.
It has not. It continues to grow. They'll be doing more shows. It's taken over.
When we see a venue getting like 13,000 instead of 18 or 20, then we'll start to question the UFC. But they're getting the fans wherever they go. So there you go. Thanks a lot, Dave. Of course, Dave can also be heard Wednesdays and Fridays on Ringside Report Radio. Dave Simon, MMA on Twitter to follow him there, or ringsidereport.net.
Our tag team name.
Oh yes. Okay. My apologies as we go to break here. Mo Khan and Dave Simon apparently have formed a tag team, and Mo Khan's about to announce the name.
Well, this morning on the franchise, Dave was on with Nick, and he goes, Mo Khan and I are like a tag team here. And the tag team that we are, the British Bulldogs.
Really? That's the name you're going with?
The Dynamite Kid, Dave Simon. I'm Davey Boy Smith, the late Davey Boy Smith. But we are the British Bulldogs. You can be our Matilda if you want.
I'm disappointed. I thought there'd be a more creative. What's the tie-in with Britain? Are you British?
We are a Commonwealth nation.
I just kind of threw it out there this morning because in the British Bulldogs, there was one guy that was little and one guy that was big, and he's big and I'm little, so I get to be Dynamite Kid, which is not so bad.
We are a Commonwealth nation paying homage to our Queen Elizabeth.
You're a queen.
Our queen.
Wow.
God save the Queen.
If I'm allowed to say, we'll be back here on Game Points with Matthew Ross. Troy Smith, good or bad for the Alouettes? Mo Khan and I have completely conflicting views on it. We'll talk about that next.
It's coast-to-coast MLS action